Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Enablement Uncanned. We are back, and we've got a little bit of a celebrity with us today. Celebrity in the marketing and enablement world. Isn't that right, Lisa? You're a celebrity. Come on.
You're too kind. You're too kind. No, no. Now you're making me feel these big expectations.
No, I'm definitely putting you on the pedestal there, so I appreciate it. So we're here with Lisa Borg. I think that's how we pronounce it. I always get that wrong. Current SVP Marketing, Senior Vice President at Acumen. Give us a little bit of an intro, Lisa. Talk to us about the role and who you are.
Oh, fantastic. First off, Jack, thanks so much for inviting me. Really excited to join with you today
No
and
problem.
talk about all things sales enablement. I am Senior Vice President of Marketing at Acumen. I've been with the company for the past 8 years, and I actually joined the very startup of the company before it was even Acumen. We're a very small team. We started with 13 centers in Florida, and now we are the largest provider of outpatient MRI and PET CT imaging in the US. We have nationwide coverage, thousands of customers, and we operate across from West Coast to East Coast.
Amazing.
I manage a team of marketing individuals, and we take care of all the branding and marketing, not just for the company, but for our business units and sales teams.
Amazing. And I still need to come to Florida because I know you've invited me, and I'm still waiting for that visit to happen. But you've been all over, right? You've worked across, you've been to Europe. Obviously, I'm in London. Well, not really London. I tell everyone London so they know kind of where I am. You've been to Dubai, you've been in Asia as well. You've got quite a long-standing career.
Yes, so I've been in marketing my entire career, and I was fortunate enough to work in hospitality marketing for five-star large hotel groups, and that enabled me to travel and work across multiple locations, including, as you mentioned, Dubai. Spent quite a long time working in India, and then pretty much all across Europe. So that was a really nice experience.
What's your favorite place in Europe, Lisa?
Oh my goodness. It's really hard to pick, and it depends on what you're looking to do. I would always say you can't beat the south of France for food, shopping, countryside, the whole experience.
There you go. No good places to ski really, unless you want to go down towards the Alps. I know you're a keen skier, so.
I am. Europe is on my wish list, but for now it's pretty much all of North America and Japan at some point in time. I'm running out of ski season.
Would be really good. Need some more business trips down there. Maybe we can get some expensed business trips out there. But no, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. It's great to have you, and I know you're super passionate sort of about how buyer behavior is evolving, because it really is evolving. And that kind of gives us a nice sort of segue into what we're talking about today. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that buyer journey, that buyer behavior, how it's evolving, and what organizations need to do to keep up. And we know that AI has changed it completely, but now what, right? Now what? Because people say that, AI is there, but what are we going to do now? So let's kick this off then, Lisa, with your boldest, your uncanned take on what you want to talk about today.
Well, we're obviously going to discuss AI. I mean, that's generally the underlying discussions of most topics these days in sales enablement and marketing. But really more specific about how rapidly it's changing things. I think, there's a sense of that AI is new, but really it's been in progression for the last 10 years at least, that general population is aware of it. But as more and more people are using AI in their daily experiences, I think now there's more focus on it. And then as companies are developing products and solutions that are AI driven, you're at the cusp of that hockey stick curve where things are going to move very rapidly between 2025 and 2027.
Yeah, we're talking a two-year journey here, right? Like in 2 years' time, it's gonna look very, very different. I guess it kind of sets the stage for why it matters now more than ever. Because I mean, I speak to companies all the time, like yourselves, and they want to deploy it. They want to deploy AI, but still a lot of companies are blocking it, or at least, struggling to find ways to incorporate it because they got AI councils, they got legal teams, et cetera, et cetera. I'm guessing you're seeing some of that as well.
Yes, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So there's
No, I
two
guess.
parts to this. I mean, obviously, AI adoption is key for an organization. Being able to be agile as an organization, going from decisions take weeks to decisions taking days, but at the same time doing that in a structured and cohesive way. So I'm not sure if you read about it, but there was a publication that put out a summer reading list of books to read, and it was quite well-known publication. And I think 90% of the titles didn't exist. So the person who wrote the article put it in ChatGPT. ChatGPT wrote new titles by existing authors, got published. The editor didn't review it. And then these authors
Wow.
are being asked about books that they hadn't yet written. So that's kind of the downfall, where you want to be sure that whatever's being churned out by the organization is in fact accurate. So there needs to be some caution instead of just rolling it out without any guardrails in place.
Yeah, for sure. But it's the battle, isn't it? And I've I've had the same problem with posting LinkedIn posts, as you and I both know.
Correct.
Checking that we actually need to post the right thing rather than having to then re-edit it. So yeah, you're right. AI can only go a certain way, and it is a good thing. It is a good thing. Not for my orders, but still a good thing. It is a struggle, and it's finding that balance with getting something like it signed off on an organization level and battling the fact that your salespeople are doing it anyway, right? Because
Yes,
I can almost guarantee them that they are. And I said this at a show last week. I was doing a presentation, and I said, no matter what blockers you put in place to signing AI off, your reps are already using it.
that's correct.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing. Going into one of the biggest uses of AI, particularly that I'm seeing, is the search, right? Actually searching for documents, searching for things, searching for content, and the rise, the early stages. You go into Google these days, you type something in, and it gives you a nice AI response, right? Pretty helpful. What happened? What happened in that shift, right? Because the traditional search is now gone. Anytime you type something in, wherever it is, you get an AI generated response. It could be on any app, it could be on Google, it could be in an enablement platform. What have you got on that? Because I know that's a big thing you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, and I think Google launched AI overviews, or previously they called it search generated experiences, May last year. And it was kind of novel. Anyone who had used ChatGPT was already used to getting those sort of summary uh, search results through
Mm.
ChatGPT. And then you'd go onto Google and you'd get the AI overview. But it was really informational driven. So it was more around you're searching for some information. Google would bring a snippet, give you that information, and then you'd have your search results underneath that. A few weeks ago, Google in their annual conference just announced the launch of AI Mode, which is going to be a huge game changer, because AI Mode is taking AI from informational to transactional. So before, for example, let's say I look up, is whey protein powder good for you? I would get an
Mm.
AI overview result talking about yes, in moderation, so on and so forth. Now
Yeah.
with AI Mode, I wouldn't just get that. I would also get a summary of, by the way, here are sellers of protein powder. And based on your
Oh.
past search history and everything I know about you from using Genie AI, I know you like chocolate flavor, so I'm going to show you chocolate flavored whey protein. And you can actually now program in that if it goes on sale and hits a certain price, it will buy the product for you, and you can pay for the product using Google Pay. And you've never
Wow.
visited the website at all. So that's kind of where, everyone says, well, what's happening with Google Ads? They are not going away. AI overviews was kind of dipping their feet in it. And because it was informational, you didn't have a lot of paid ads around that because a
Yeah,
seller's not going to bid to be on, is whey protein good for you? Because that's a little too much of a broad term. But with AI mode, now you're going to be having transactional search results, which is now going to give Google that option to do more paid advertising around that.
that's crazy.
It is.
It's, isn't it? There's a couple of
Yeah,
things there. There's a couple of things. One that you mentioned, it only released in May last year. I mean, that's crazy in a sense, right? We're talking just over a year, and it feels like it's been around forever. And that
correct.
just it sort of proves your hockey stick analogy that you mentioned right at the start. The second thing is buying something and giving you the information without you actually having to go to the vendor's website. So I guess it's that moment, it's that aha moment. Okay, the web traffic and the stuff that we traditionally as marketeers have to sort of focus on isn't actually telling us the whole story.
Exactly. I mean, traditionally, we followed a pretty standard approach to the marketing funnel, and that really hasn't changed over the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years since Google
Yeah.
became, the primary search engine. So prospects would follow a really clear path, right? You'd search, you'd browse, compare, and decide. Maybe social media kind of did a bit of push advertising out there, but mostly we were doing pull advertising. Now that funnels out the window because with these
Mm,
new solutions, that buyer is going through a very different process. They don't need to do a full search. They don't need to do a full browse or a comparison. These new AI solutions are pulling all that information, doing all of that research for you, and just presenting, here's your options, here's why this one's better than that one. And you're right at that buying decision very early out the gate. So the lead cycle is now, lead and sales cycle is shortened considerably, which is a good thing.
yeah, it's a good thing for people like me.
Yes, not so good
Um,
for people like me who have to show, an ROI on what marketing is delivering, because now it's a little bit tougher to join the
yeah,
dots.
absolutely. Because buyers have always entered the sales process at such a late stage, and that's been a traditional thing for even prior to AI, right? I think it's as late as almost 90 to 95% of the way through their research. And before, take a car. Car is a great example. You know what car you want to buy before you go and speak to the dealer,
Correct.
right? You just do because you've looked at the colors, you've looked at the interior, you've looked at the type of car that you want. Is it family orientated or whatever? Is it fast? And then you go and speak to the salesperson. You've already kind of made your mind up. So we're saying that AI is actually going to make that even later.
To some extent, yes. So what's going to, not just later, but more informed,
Okay.
more buyers, more informed. So what's happening was previously you'd have kind of the lead sitting in marketing, and marketing would have hopefully full visibility into that lead in some extent. So how did you first find out about us? Did you call us? Did you visit our website? Did you click on a Facebook ad? Did you fill out a form, right? And then what did you do when you filled out the form? Did you download a white paper? Hopefully, if you're using a decent CRM and you have some marketing automation, you could score those leads as well.
Yeah.
And then over time, you'd nurture those leads with an email marketing campaign. And then finally, to your point, 95% into the buying cycle, or 95% of those people are showing up in front of the sales rep at almost decided, right? So then you would
Yeah.
want to get marketing and sales to kind of cobble that information together to say, okay, this is how this person came in, this is who closed it, and share the overall attribution to who drove what. What's happening now with AI is that a buyer is coming in without that full visibility on the marketing side. So they've done all that research, and Google's given the information that you've created, but they haven't had to visit your website to get it.
Hmm.
And then when they're coming in, AI informed buyers are not going to wait for your sales reps to catch up to be as informed as they are. So I think that's the
Wow.
key segue and the change, that your reps need to keep up with the buyers and not vice versa.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a good point. I was at Anticon last week. It's a conference here in London. Again, here in London. I'm not in London, but we can pretend I'm in London. And we were talking about how the time that you have with a buyer is getting less and less. and it is, right? You spend less and less time with the buyer, and how AI is solving 90% of my day-to-day mundane tasks so I can spend more time with the buyer. So that kind of sits nicely into what you're saying there. Because if you can utilize the AI on the seller side to get you up to speed to understand how advanced the buyer might be at that stage, you are going to be able to spend more time. And it also proves that people buy from people because AI has done the hard part.
Yes, the human people still buy from humans. The human interaction is key to closing the cycle, and that I think will always be the case, no matter how much AI is part of that sales cycle
Yeah, I
and
think you're right.
process.
I think you're right. So how are you guys doing it at Acumen? Because I know because traditionally, since I mean, you and I have known each other a good couple of years now, and traditionally you used to have brochures and paper that you used to send out as content, and that traditionally worked, right, for a lot of organizations, particularly in healthcare. But long docs and sort of static documents, they're failing now, aren't they? What are you transitioning to at Acumen? What kind of what content are your reps beginning to use in the field?
Yeah, so this was a huge shift, right? So typically, marketing would produce content, we'd put that on a drive or on a shared folder. Reps would be able to pull, print what they need, distribute that to their buyers, or in our
Hmm.
case with Acumen, we also have referring physician providers. So we actually have two sales teams. We have an account executive who maintains that relationship with referring physicians, and then we have biz dev sales teams who are partnering with hospitals and healthcare systems to provide diagnostic imaging and oncology services. So we would produce content, put it out there, and not really have a deep understanding on what is being used beyond, print quantities and hoping that the reps are distributing what they're ordering.
Hmm.
And then we weren't really having any visibility at all on how the end user was consuming that information. So the big shift for us was moving everything to the digital sales enablement platform, Bigtincan, is we can consolidate our content onto that platform, see how it's being shared, and then the really cool piece is understanding how the end user is consuming that information. So one of the key kind of aha moments was seeing that when you're creating what we call a digital sales room, where I might be sharing a flyer, a brochure,
Hmm.
pictures, and videos, the open rates on pictures and videos were significantly higher than flyers
Really?
and brochures by a long shot, a long shot. So that was really interesting for us. And I kind of think it takes you back to that like TikTok mindset where we've
Yeah.
been now preconditioned to everything has to give you instant gratification, and we've got the
So true.
the attention span of a goldfish, right? If it's running
Yeah.
more than a couple of seconds, you've lost me, right? So you still have that 3 second uh, window to make an impact. So your flyers have to be really well designed, a clear headline, simple bullet points if you're going to use that, but really driving more towards visual content, short form videos, that kind of content in the business world, which might not be as intuitive. We're used to doing white papers and case studies, and that's no longer the case because by the time the buyers come to you, Google's given them that research already.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? We're actually really simple creatures. Going back to
Yes.
it reminds me of the time when I used to pretend to read books or pretend to read the newspaper when newspapers existed. I don't even know if they still do. Haven't seen one in a long time. Just look at the pictures. Just look at the pictures and you'll get a good feel as to what's going on. But you're right, and I think social media. I mean, we could do an entire podcast on social media.
Easily.
Social media is to blame. A lot of it is to blame on that. Because I find myself sitting in evenings watching TikTok, and get moaned at because I should be doing something productive with my life or whatever.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I actually quite enjoy it. So
That's true. That's true. And you know what? If you because TikTok is using an AI machine learning algorithm, it's
it knows me.
producing content for you that you are interested and can learn. Whereas Facebook is more the content is driven around your friends and pages you like, so your content is more driven in that way. TikTok actually offers some learning opportunities if you're spending time wanting to learn more about business. So AI is a great
Yeah.
example. There's a lot of really good content on TikTok around AI and what's changing and news around that as a
Yeah,
tool.
I've actually seen quite a lot of enablement and marketing and sales tips on there as well. That does you do get some good things like that. And you mentioned Bigtincan in that, and I will say, because this is a vendor agnostic podcast, there are some other sales enablement vendors and platforms available if listeners would like to go and check. I mean, they can check out Bigtincan, but there are others as well. But yeah, Lisa is Bigtincan. Metrics are, going back to utilizing that data to sort of identify what's resonating. Your salespeople then, I mean, are they finding that in the field as well? Are they struggling to gain, I guess, interest? Are they struggling to gain that connection with people if they don't have that information in front of them?
Well, yes and no. So I wouldn't say that the buyers are already at the stage where they're coming in fully informed. Like certain
Okay.
industries, yes, but healthcare, we're always a few years behind somehow.
Yeah.
So it's just the nature of the business. So I think they will be informed, but I don't think it's the leading edge on AI adoption. But on the account executive side, we do see what we've discovered using different tools. Aside of Bigtincan, we also use another product called Map My Customer, where we can look at what physician offices are being visited and who they're meeting with. And what
That's
we
amazing.
discovered was that a lot of the reps were kind of just getting to the receptionist and not going face to face with the physician. And part of that was they weren't necessarily comfortable having an in-depth discussion with a physician about a particular product or service. So one of the ways we leverage Bigtincan, aside of managing content, is learning and coaching. So that's a key differentiator now, where you'd have an AE coming in who doesn't really have a full background on radiology or physicians and all the different types of imaging exams out there. And using a platform like Bigtincan, we can very quickly coach, teach, and test how they're interacting with physicians. And then in Bigtincan, there's the AI Genie, which is fantastic because unlike having them go out to Chat GPT or other LLM models and hoping that the information is correct, with AI Genie, we can restrict it to just look for information that we've loaded into Bigtincan. And so when they're meeting with a physician and they're talking about, let's say, one of our MRI units, and if the physician says, well, how does this help claustrophobic patients? They can
Hmm.
quickly use the AI Genie to ask that question, and it will not only pull up a summary of bullet points, similar to what you get from, say, ChatGPT, but it will also link to the flyers that you could share with the physician. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
amazing.
helped the team significantly.
I say that's amazing. Like I don't know it does it. Of course I know it does it. Um, but no, thank you for that. And it's like I said, the leading indicators are changing, right? Because I guess the big question is how do you measure effectiveness? I get this asked all the time, right? How on earth do we now measure effectiveness when you've got an enablement platform, you've got a CRM doing it for you? How do you put all that together, particularly when no one's hitting your website? Right?
Correct. Well, it's always going to drive back to revenues, right? So if your
Yeah.
revenues aren't going up, it doesn't matter what platform you're using, you're not effective. But I think even
Hmm.
going back to not just new sales, but repeat customers and growing your customer base, like services within your customer base, one of the key changes that you're going to see driven by AI is quarterly business reviews. So when a sales rep is meeting with the customer and they're going through key performance indicators, quarterly business reviews, by their own very nature, they used to be backward looking, right? So this is what
Hmm.
happened in this month. This is what we're seeing. With the use of AI, now, I'd say there's four buckets with AI that we're using it for. One, to automate mundane tasks. Second one is analyze, augment existing things that you're doing that you could use some help with, and then anticipate. And I think that's the big changes. So now instead of just going and throwing a whole bunch of historical data at your customer, now you can find trends and then predict patterns so that they can be ahead of the curve of their competitors. So that's where the value add comes with really using AI to help your customer get ahead.
And then that's creating that level of trust, isn't it? Again, going back to the people buying from people, because it's that shift from almost an old traffic driven kind of, way to driving to that trust measurement. And if you can then utilize AI to give that advice and give that future look to your customers and to the buyers, they're going to gain that trust in you even more, right?
Yes, and the big difference is that you could do this. You could do this, but you'd need an analytics team, and it would take a really long time to do. But now
Yeah.
you can, put that data in an LLM model, do a deep analysis, and it will pull up some pretty good data that now you can incorporate in those decks relatively quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I'm a big advocate of it, as you know. I mean, I utilize it on a daily basis. I was speaking about it just last week. I can come into the office, ask AI, I've got a meeting with Lisa today, and it's going to be about this, and it will just go away, find all the information it needs to know about you, give me some ideas about what I can talk about because this is what Lisa's interested in. It's crazy.
It
Because
is.
then
It
that
is.
allows me to spend the time with you one on one rather than having to worry about what's going on in the back end. So,
That's correct. And there's a number of companies popping up that really focus on doing this very effectively. So over time, you're going to find even more of these resources available to do that deep search data, to really compare different analysis and provide a more intelligent result and insight.
how are those AI companies going to differentiate then? What's their biggest thing? Because it's going to be very samey out there, isn't it?
Well,
How are they
speed to
going to
market, right? I think you can see you've got all of these different groups, right? OpenAI, you've got Google, you've got Apple, they're all falling, Facebook,
Yeah.
investing billions of dollars, falling over themselves to be first to market, because I think it'll be similar to, the paradigm shift with Google. Like, you don't hear about Netscape, you don't hear about Yahoo, Ask Jeeves. These old search engines are gone,
Ask
and Google is,
Jeeves.
remember,
Oh,
like that's a
wow.
long time
I've
ago.
not heard that for a long time.
So there's one winner in this, most likely, and that's going to be a key driver in kind of what solutions get built from there.
Yeah. Ask Jeeves. What a blast from the past that is. Yeah, you're right. You don't hear about them. People, even Yahoo, you don't really use anymore. I don't, I've never, you haven't used that for a while. Um, so is enablement then, enablement and marketing, right? Although they're very, very different, there is actually a huge, huge crossover now. Like enablement's almost becoming the new distribution arm of marketing, I guess. And you've got some examples of this because obviously you have Hardia who was on Uncanned last week. She's great with the sales effectiveness and the enablement side. Obviously you got you on the marketing side. What is that meaning for cross-functional go-to-market teams? What does that mean, particularly in Acumen, but also elsewhere that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, marketing and sales have always worked together, not
Try
necessarily
to.
always agreeing or
Yeah.
try to, right? Um, this gives it's a central and neutral kind of way to provide data that has some meat behind it, right? So it's
Hmm.
not just kind of marketing feels like this is how things are happening, sales feels like this is happening, and then you fight it out to figure out who gets credit. Now we have real clear data to analyze what was shared, did it drive volumes, integrating that with other platforms to see what happened. The patient comes in from the referring provider. Hopefully they have a great experience because we're also using AI to survey patients and analyze that data. And then that goes back to the physician and sends you more patients. So you want to see if that's like closing the loop fully. I think the biggest challenge with this is the kind of big brother oversight that the
Yeah.
sales reps feel that this might bring in, because we do now have a lot of insight into what's going on. So really getting them onboarded and understanding the value add for them helps them tremendously. Even when closing deals, right? Before you would send a file out to a customer, maybe a proposal, and if you wouldn't know what happened with it, right? You've sent it
No.
out and you hope that they looked at it. But with platforms like Bigtincan, you can see if they've opened it, shared it, downloaded it. And so if you are predicting you're working on your sales pipeline, if you've sent a proposal and nobody's looked at it, you're unlikely going to close that deal in the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So that's the visibility that even you as a sales rep you're not overestimating what your close will be for that particular quarter. And then if they have opened the file, now you have a good way to kind of calculate when you're going to follow up and see where things land.
Yeah, and even see what they're looking at within the file as well, right? I mean,
Correct.
that's the biggest thing because my proposals tend to go on and on and on.
Yes.
Because there's a lot to it, right? There's a lot of information that you need to send out. But if they're looking at one particular thing, then and it's really interesting because you're sort of flipping it, right? You used to use the content used to come first before enablement. You would produce the content, hope that it resonates with your buyer, and then tweak it. But in actual fact, it's completely flipped now. We're almost utilizing the enablement piece to then flip the content and tweak the content before we send it out. So it's a complete 360.
That's correct. And I think that's a big change for us too, right? From a marketing standpoint, we would produce collateral and say, hey, we've done our job. We've got all of these marketing pieces. The reps have everything they need. And instead, we're picking maybe 3 or 4 areas where we want to win and creating really deep content and training around that. So we are developing playbooks. For example, Acumen last year launched Acumen Access, which is outpatient imaging centers, expandable. It is a game changer. This was the world's first. So this is something where we've really done deep content creation. We've created playbooks with content videos, like I mentioned, pictures, site maps, setup guides, everything you can imagine in there, plus learning, plus training, plus practice. So less content, but better content that the reps really use is our focus for this year.
Because one of the stats I'll always live and die by is 60% of what marketing produces does not get used. 60%.
Not surprising.
It's going to come down. I imagine it'll come down as AI keeps coming and coming, and you start utilizing, the enablement data and the metrics that you're getting to tweak that content and, facilitate it to your buyer. But yeah, 60%. I mean, if you've got a big budget on content and some of these healthcare companies are spending millions and millions on content, that's a lot of cash going down the drain. A lot of cash.
It is. And it also drives back to what you're doing on the front end to generate that customer, right? So you can take that information you're seeing on the back end and then choose platforms where it's working. So maybe I will spend less on paid search and I'll put more on social media. Maybe I'll focus more on paid ads with a click to call versus website landing page, right? As we're moving towards less visits to the website, people still call, people still ask Alexa for information. So building content is still going to be very key to driving that leads, and having the insight into what content is moving the needle helps you not do work which isn't going to make a difference.
Changing the game one thing at a time here, you are, Lisa. Give us some advice, because there's a lot of enablement people that listen to this. We've actually got quite a nice core following now, which is nice. A lot of enablement leaders. What would be your biggest piece of advice for enablement leaders or anyone in enablement rethinking their charter? Because I mean, that is happening a lot. You're going to have to rethink charter for those of you who don't know what charter is, an enablement charter is your plan about how you're going to do things, right? I mean, that's changing. So what advice do you have for those that are rethinking how they do it?
You definitely need to pivot. I don't think you're going to have, a 1-year time frame to figure all this out. You need to pivot. You need to pivot fast. You need to be looking at ways you're producing content. You need to move away from your traditional funnel measurement, website hits, CRM forms, because it's going to move very quickly. Like I said, with AI mode, it's still in beta, but that's going to roll out pretty aggressively in the next couple of months. And you will see a significant drop off. And unless you have something already in place that's going to help fill that gap, you're going to be playing catch up very quickly. So you need to go back to your leadership team, your manager, whoever you're working with, and really talk about AI and how you're going to change the strategy around sales enablement. And obviously partner with your sales leaders, right? The worst thing marketing can do or anything in a business is introduce a new software and you haven't got a buy-in, because if people
Yeah.
aren't using the platform, it's pretty useless. So really talking about that. And the great thing is you can use AI to write a proposal, write a summary, produce the benefits on all this. You can get that done in 24 hours and kind of have something ready to talk to about that.
But make sure you read it before you send it
Make
out.
sure you read it. Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's the biggest misconception you're seeing about sales enablement today?
Well, I mentioned it before, right? One is sort of the idea that enablement platforms are Big Brother and they're there to
Mm,
be punitive in that you didn't do enough check-ins, you haven't contacted enough leads. What are you doing with this customer? That's traditionally how it's been. Versus now, it should be a tool that the team can use to help them do their job better, faster,
yeah.
and more effectively. And part of that is training your reps on how to utilize the platform to its full capabilities as well, whichever platform you go with.
It's the education piece, isn't it? It's actually letting people know what you're doing this for, why you're bringing it in, like you said, like you just mentioned with the platform piece. Because there's nothing worse than doing, the old coaching and role plays that you used to do with your managers and being
Yes.
stared upon and you put on a spot, right? Whereas
And
now,
ride-alongs and yeah, and
yeah,
I mean it's a little bit of a leap. Like when you go and you're using, let's say, Bigtincan, right? I can record myself on video and the AI is going to analyze it. At first, it's really tough. It's tough for
yeah,
any of us to hear our voice recorded, watch ourselves on video. But having the ability for AI to score that and give you feedback is a really good model for adoption, right? Because I don't have to submit my video take until I've practiced a little bit and I've got that feedback from AI. And maybe I learn not to use the filler words, right? Like,
hmm
so and you just get better at it, right? Practice really does make perfect in these instances. So just want to try it and you'll get better over time. I joke, right? I only learned to ski 8 years ago as an adult. And I was, let's just say, really bad at it. But with practice, now I'm a very proficient skier and it's something I love doing. So it's the same when you're doing sales enablement and training. It's just a lot of practice, repetitive practice, so you get your pitch down right.
Yeah, amazing. I've never been skiing ever.
I've
Uh,
made you the offer many a time.
I genuinely think I might break something if I go skiing. I'm not built for sport. I've tried. Um, I've played American football for a little bit, screwed my knee, screwed my head. Um, so I can't imagine what would happen on a slope. It would be quite entertaining for others, not necessarily for me. But do you know what? I'll do it one day. I'll do it one day.
Look, there's always the app racing, which is also something which is huge fun. So
But don't ask Hardier about what to take on holiday and what to wear on
oh
holiday because
no,
she's
no,
not
yes,
very good at that.
Hadia is very good at planning for her vacations. We love it.
And for those of you that know what I'm talking about, that was on last week's or 2 weeks ago, I should say, podcast where she did not quite pack the right gear for the Grand Canyon trip, but she won't mind me saying that. She'll be okay with that. Um, well, thank you for today. It's been superb. I know there's a resource that you recommend, I think, or at least you wanted to throw in here.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think the cool thing about AI and what's happening and the industry trend is that it's leveling the playing field again, right? So we
Yeah, it
used to
is.
say, well, AI isn't going to take your job, but someone who knows AI might. And then now we're in the phase of AI is going to take everyone's job and we're all going to be unemployed. And with a little bit of thought, it's maybe going to change jobs. And there's going to be, with new services, new technology, there's going to be different types of jobs. So learning AI, learning everything you can about it does give you an advantage over someone who doesn't in terms of experience. So now someone more junior could level up and progress through an organization quicker than somebody who might have a lot of experience but isn't as familiar with AI. So obviously search for resources. There's two I really like. One is obviously Seth Godin. He is your traditional marketer. He doesn't really talk specifically about AI, but he does kind of make general observations. He's just fantastic marketing resource. And then if you really want to learn about AI and marketing, there is Rand Fishkin, ex leader of Moz, which used to be the dual and then dual for search engine optimization. And he has a blog, which is sparktoro.com/blog. Highly recommend you check that out.
I'll get the team to put it up on screen. So if
Fantastic.
if anyone's watching, which they will be, they can get that link, and we can always send it out too. But yeah, leveling the playing field is it's a good way to end this, because it is. If you're not advancing, you're not adapting, you will get caught out to be that mediocre kind of level, right? But yeah, any final thoughts from yourself, Lisa? Because this has been really cool. It's been a good one.
Great chatting with you as always. Just really excited to see what happens. And I don't really like making predictions about AI because how fast it changes, but it'll be interesting to look back on this even 6 months from now and see how correct we were in some of these assumptions.
And in 6 months' time, you and I will be doing this podcast, but we'll just be holograms, right?
That is correct.
We won't actually be here.
Not really here either.
We'll be skiing. I'll be finally skiing with you, and the podcast will be happening with AI involved.
There you go. You've got it all sorted. You should close on that. That's the major selling point for Bigtincan and everything enablement.
Amazing. Well, thanks again, Lisa. Been an absolutely superstar guest. You are a celebrity in the space. I will hold my hands up and say that. And yeah, this has been Enablement Uncanned. Thanks for everyone for listening.
Thank you.